Hey y'all, Melissa here with you today, and it is football season in our house, so I'm wearing Spirit shirts, and I decided to make myself a pair of new game day shorts. I've added the stripes down the sides, and these have pockets. I've also got a Drawcord elastic waist on them with the interior drawstring so that I can adjust the fit throughout their wear. I am using a free pattern to make these. It's actually the pajama shorts pattern, but this is a little more of an advanced project because of adding the pockets, using this thicker knit fabric, and the Drawcord waist. However, if you've sewn those pajama shorts and you're willing to go slowly, you can try to tackle this project as well. Here's the link of where to get all the pattern details. It's also shared below, so grab that and then meet me back at the camera to see how to sew these up. Let's go over our supplies. So I've cut out my pattern here from sweatshirt fleece. I have 4 pockets, 2 sets mirrored. I have my 2 mirrored front pieces and my 2 mirrored back pieces. You're also going to need some elastic. Now I'm using Drawcord elastic for this project, and I'm going to show you how to insert this kind. Drawcord elastic has this ridge in the middle that has a cord inserted in it, and that will help you adjust how tight the elastic feels. You can certainly use regular elastic if you prefer to skip that. Lastly, I want to note I've got a safety pin here through the cord and the end of the elastic. That's so that if I stretch this, the cord doesn't disappear inside the elastic. And then I have 4 strips here for my stripes. I cut these out of white cotton spandex jersey fabric, and then I sprayed them and sprayed them with spray starch before pressing them with the 2 raw edges meeting in the middle. Now you can pin these on, but I also have one more optional supply that can be really helpful, and that is this wash away double-sided sticky tape. And I have this linked below so you can check it out yourself too, but there are lots of uses for it. I like to use it on swimsuits, and I think it helps keep my stripes straighter than if I was pinning them on. So let's go ahead and start with the stripes. Okay, to add my stripes, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to measure over 3/4 of an inch from the side seam edge. That will give me my 1/2 inch seam allowance plus another 1/4 inch. And when I do this on all 4 edges, it means my stripes will be 1/2 inch apart. Then I'm going to take my wash away tape and I am going to place it right at that 3/4 inch mark. Once you have the tape aligned, you can pull off the backing. And then I'm going to take one of my stripes and I am going to align the edge with the edge of that tape. Now I need to top stitch down both edges of my stripe with some kind of stretch stitch. So you can use like a lightning bolt zigzag, you can use a narrow zigzag stitch, you can use a triple stitch. I'm going to use my cover stitch machine, but you do want this to stretch because that will preserve the vertical stretch of the fabric, and the stripes themselves do stretch a little bit that way too, and as soon as we wash that adhesive out of them, that will stretch all together as long as you've used a stretch stitch. You're going to repeat this process on all the side seams for each of the 4 pieces. Here's what that looks like once the stripe is sewn on. And so next we want to add the pocket pieces. In order to add the pocket pieces, we need to measure down how far the waistband is going to go. So I'm going to hold my elastic in place, and I am just going to double fold it and make a little mark out here of where that point is. And I want to line up the top of the pocket, right sides together, with that point on the shorts. And that way when I insert the waistband later, when I fold it over, the very top edge of the pocket will be caught in there, but it won't have a bunch of bulk up in here. And I want to then measure how far down did I put that. And it looks like that is 2 3/4 inches. So I will put it in the same place on every side seam. And I'm just going to sew this portion here with a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Okay, once you have that pocket sewn on, what you want to do is repeat that on all of the pattern pieces. And then we're going to place one front and one back, right sides together. I'm going to press all of my seams towards the pockets and line up these raw edges. I am going to stitch with a 1/2 inch seam allowance down right here until I hit where I started stitching on the pocket. Then I'm going to come across around the pocket. I am going to come up the pocket edge here until I'm even with where the stitching was here, go across and back down the side seam. Okay, here is the pocket sewn on. We want to press the pocket towards the front side, and then when we open this out, here's the front side, here's the back side, and here is the pocket. You can see our stripes down the side. I am going to pin this pocket to keep it against the front side and make sure everything's nice and flat here. So we're just adding a few pins to keep it in place. And then what you want to do is place the two shorts pieces right sides together. So I've got fronts over here, I've got backs over here, and we are going to sew these curved crotch seams here. So on the front, sewing that, on the back, sewing that, and of course throughout all of this we are using a stretch stitch. Once we've sewn those seams, we can open our shorts out, and we want to match up the inseams here. So I am going to press my seams open and pin the front to the back. Okay, and then I'm going to stitch right across that inseam. So here's what these shorts look like once the inseam is sewn, and now I need to focus on the waistband. So you'll notice, since we are using the Drawcord elastic, that one side of the elastic above the Drawcord here is thinner than the other side below the Drawcord here. And when you're wearing this, you want the shorter edge to face up on your waistband and the wider edge to be down on your waistband. So I'm going to put this on my waist casing here. We're going to start with it upside down, and I'm going to flip it, and then that way that thinner edge is up towards the top. Then I can feel the Drawcord elastic here, and I want to mark where that elastic is. I'm going to put pins on either side of it. And that is where I'm going to make a hole for my drawstring to come through to the inside of the shorts. You do have to decide, are you putting your drawstring on the inside or the outside of your pants, because that affects where you're going to remove these stitches. Then I am going to use a seam ripper, and I am just going to take out the stitches, and that will be my hole where the Drawcord elastic will come through. Next, I'm going to pin my waistband casing all the way around my shorts. Here is what that looks like, all pinned in place, and now I'm going to stitch all the way around, leaving a gap so that I can insert the elastic next. Alright, here is my waistband casing sewn. Here is my gap to put in the elastic. I'm going to do one more thing before I stitch this, and that is on the outside I am going to mark my stitching lines that I'm going to be adding after I insert the elastic. So we can see here that once I insert my elastic into the casing, I'm going to want one stitching line here above the drawcord and one stitching line here below the drawcord. So we're just going to mark those all the way around. Those will serve as a guideline when we do our next pass of stitching. And now I'm going to grab my bodkin and we're going to insert the elastic through the casing. So I do have this bodkin tool linked below if you'd like to get your own. I find it a little easier than safety pins. I am going to leave the safety pins on this to make sure my draw cord doesn't get lost inside the elastic. And remember, you want that thinner end going up. Okay, next I'm going to overlap the ends of my elastic here. And I'm going to pin them, making sure I'm going through the draw cord on each end, and I will zigzag these together, and that means I will be able to take out my safety pins. Now that these ends are sewn together, I can clip off the extra draw cord because it's not going anywhere. And then I can go ahead and pull that all the way into my casing. And I want to get it lined up with my center back seam. This is why I left my gap next to my center back seam, because we were just going to do a straight stitch right across that seam line. So it'll be hidden, but it'll hold that elastic in place so it won't twist. Okay, I've gone ahead and sewed the gap closed, and I stitched in the ditch here so that the elastic won't pull. And now I'm going to distribute it evenly. And then on the inside here, we need to pull the draw cord out. Okay, so what you want to do here is find your hole that you left, and you want to push your fabric aside so that you can see. Can we see in there the elastic? I'm going to pull it up with the seam ripper. And you can see how it's grabbing the cord from in between those, like that ribbed part where the cord was hidden. So now I can just pull the cord here, and this will be what adjusts my elastic. If you want to, you can also tie it in a knot here so that it, at some point here, so that it doesn't go back in the hole. I suggest doing that at the end so that you have the full use of the elastic being able to go in and out to adjust the fit on these. But this will keep it so that it doesn't disappear in there, so you don't have to pull it back out again. Draw cord out of the hole. Now I can go and I'm going to stretch my shorts flat as I do the stitching line on my marked lines above and below the draw cord. Okay, y'all, here is that waistband with the drawstring casing sewn in now and the elastic secure. And then as you can see, you can pull the drawstring to shorten up that waistband, or you can pull the waistband out to let the drawstring go back. The last thing we need to do is hem the bottom edge, so we're going to turn that up 3/4 of an inch and stitch all the way around, and then these are done. And here's what these look like when they're finished. I've got my stripes, my pockets, and my drawstring to adjust them.